Welcome to the DeBruce Foundation's Empowering Careers podcast, where we explore insights and strategies to build empowered careers. I'm Dr. Leigh Anne Taylor Knight, the Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer of the Foundation. And today, I'm thrilled to welcome David Law to our podcast. David is the superintendent of schools in Minnetonka Public Schools in Minnesota and currently serves as the president of AASA, the School Superintendents Association. He has spent more than 30 years in public education, from classroom to district leadership, and now he represents more than 13,000 school leaders across the country. David, welcome to our podcast.
Leigh Anne, great to see you this afternoon. Thanks for having me. This will be a fun conversation to have.
It will. We like to start with learning a little bit more about your career journey, right, David? So we have people listening who they're trying to figure out their career journey or how to help other people navigate a career journey. So talk with us a little bit. I know you started as a math teacher, then came up through the ranks, superintendent, and now a national leader of school superintendents. So what are the kinds of experiences along your career journey that really impacted the way that you approach learning and leading in schools now, David?
Great question. Thank you. I think this is, we are a people business and we're a teacher business. And so when I look back over my career, and actually, if you go back to my first teaching experience, I'm 41 years in. I started while I was in high school as a swim teacher and coach. So my time teaching was about 15 years from that experience until I left the classroom. And I think we are forever teaching. In my job as superintendent, I am constantly educating people about things that they're not, as I'm informing, I'm thinking of how can I message something so that these people will appreciate either the complexity or the intention of what we're talking about. So, and on top of that, as I talk with aspiring leaders within education uniquely, teachers like to know that the person leading them understands teaching. And while that job has significantly changed over 30 years, the concept of prepping, of managing, of supervising, of multitasking all day long, the structure, when can I go to the bathroom? What 5 minutes do I have to make a phone call? How long is lunch? All those things are unique to education. And I think that's a good background. Educational leadership is about collaboration. I've had lots of conversations in the last week about are these things that teachers think we're doing to them or doing for them? And so that really came from, I spent 12 years as a middle school administrator, both as an assistant principal and principal, really walking the halls, supporting teachers. And then district level leadership is balancing pressure on our system with implementation within our system. And now really over the last 12 years, working with school boards to say, what does everything we know tell us we should be doing? And then as the implementer, how do I take the direction they have, make sure they're confident with it, and work in our system to make positive change? All of those things are a progression over time, and nothing is a better teacher than experience.
100%. And I love the way a lot of people talk about making data-driven decisions, but I love the way you framed that in the space of taking everything we know and then using it to inform what we're going to do. Because sometimes we just put data in one lane, right, David? And it's really about everything that we know, which all can be data points too, but then using that to inform what we do next.
Well,
yeah.
We are, I remind people, we should blame ourselves for how people have viewed us because we've done things without being very clear about what we expect to change.
Right.
And then when nothing changes and we do something different, whether it be our employees or our students or our community, and we wonder, why don't they buy in? Well, if we didn't say this is what this will look like if we're successful, shame on us.
Yeah.
But how do we know when we're done? We're done
Yeah.
when we stop doing it, whether or not we accomplish what we sought out to.
That's right. And even acknowledging, so taking ownership of that accountability and also acknowledging that, by the way, we're going to try some things and they're going to fail. And our
Mhm.
job is going to be to learn from them, right? If we as educators can't step out into that space and really be about failing forward and doing the best that we can all the time, but really being accountable. To
Yeah.
ourselves and others. Yeah, I appreciate your saying that. And I know a lot of people listening will also appreciate that, whether they sit in the seat of an educator or a parent, a community member, school board member, all of the businesses, right, who even
Right.
partner
Well,
with
we are.
education.
I mean, we have lots of similarities with businesses. We have some
We do.
significant differences. Our output are humans, and
Yes.
humans have free will. So it's different than making a thing because a thing is an object. We're
Yeah.
dealing with humans, and humans are in constant development. We are in development still.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the role that educators have played on your pathway. I want to share this quote with our audience. David shared about his success, quote, what has shaped your success, quote, the love of your family and the commitment of public educators to see your potential. So you give family and educators some of that credit. Would you just talk with us a little bit more about the role those educators played, and why that kind of a role matters for our students today still?
Well, I first of all, I'm the youngest of seven children, and I'm going to give my siblings a shout out. I've learned many life lessons from them. And I think life lessons, people always assume, oh, those must have been good lessons. No, you know what? Sometimes you can learn a lesson from someone because things didn't work out for them or things
Yeah,
did, right? And
yeah,
those are all valuable lessons. Um, but at its core, between those two things, people who believe in you and expect you to be successful matters. And
yes,
I was in a building earlier this morning, and we were talking about students that aren't meeting our expectations yet as a frustration. But on the flip side of that, it's students who we see as capable of doing so much more, and it's a belief in that student. And so, public education at its best is when we can see potential and help kids reach that potential. Um, and when people talk about what's the magic bullet for all that ails education today, it starts with I believe the people I'm working with can be successful. And for me, I my family moved around a lot over the time I was in public education. I went to 8 schools in 12 years in Illinois, in California, in Minnesota, Illinois, and again in Minnesota. The common theme was I quickly would come across people who saw potential and invested in me. And if you can do that in 4 elementary schools and 2 different middle schools and 2 different high schools, and I'm not a statistic, I could be, that's a positive backstory. It's possible, right? And
yes,
so I tell that story sometimes as we talk about, people who are in transition or who are in crisis or who are homeless. We are the stability in public education. And when we provide that, we can disrupt whatever instability those kids have had.
yes. Yeah. Well, and I'm going to harken back to something that you said early on about leadership being about collaboration. So the same applies to the adults. When you believe that the adults can do what we're attempting to do, and together we move forward, that's the same trip. So we need to believe in those students. We need to believe in our communities to be a part of that. And we as leaders in organizations really need to believe in those with whom we get to work every day and
Right.
collaborate.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, you know, Minnetonka is known for innovation. And so, what are some of the programs or approaches that you're specifically excited about right now?
Um, well, I'll take two different or approaches to that question. One, we have had the good fortune of stability in trajectory. And so we have some long established programs that we've been tweaking that are really high quality. We have 40% of our students are either in K-12 Spanish immersion or Chinese immersion. And those programs are constantly innovating within themselves. But if you think of the concept of innovation as what's new and different, those are programs that are established and successful, and they're innovative in the fact that we're tweaking within an established program that's very successful in Chinese immersion programming or Spanish immersion programming, and they're constantly, coursework within those programs are constantly evolving, and that's a source of innovation. On the other end of the spectrum are public education and this perception that we've been the same program that we were in the 70s and 80s. We are so different. I just presented at a local Rotary last week, and the most common thing I hear is, I wish that those things were around when I was in school.
Oh, I hear that too.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
the experiential learning we provide for
yes.
students that is problem based, it's real world based. Um,
Hmm.
just a handful of examples. Some of our students are presenting at the Capitol on the importance of school safety. Now, talk about relevance, school safety across the country, but those kids are learning about both the what of school safety and the political why and the barriers and everything from, what's the role of an educator to talk about gun violence or gun safety or gun protection or school hardening or safety practices. But those experiences for kids are relevant to a topic today. And they're working with one-on-one. Their mentor reached out to our school board and invited to come hear them present to a local community group about what they learned. So collaboration, public presentations,
Hmm.
working with a mentor, research, final product, a different spin on that in that experiential learning program. We had students do web-based improvements with community organizations, and one of our student groups worked with a local community group on recycling. And their video that they created on teaching the community about what it looks like to recycle in our community is still on that district's webpage. So you talk about you know, a resume piece or
Yes.
something in a portfolio. They're going to say, well, I'm just going to show you this link. Here's a product that I created that still lives today serving a function. It's not some random hypothetical product. This is a
Hmm.
real thing we created that's still being used in our community. That's how education is evolving and innovating. It's giving kids real opportunities that are relevant and practical.
Yeah, and the students get turned on by that. I'm guessing too that your educators get turned on by that when they get to help students create and dream in those particular spaces and put them, the other thing that is happening for those students is they're practicing being citizens in a democratic society, right? And they're
Right.
learning about policy and how to impact the things that they care about, which I think that's one of the things that's really hopeful about this generation that we have is they're being realistic about their future. They're also really hopeful that they can change it and make good things happen. But if we think about the adults who get to work with these students, talk with us, give some advice to superintendents and other leaders about how we can create cultures where educators can feel empowered to innovate like this, like these programs that you're talking about. How do we create that kind of culture, David?
Well, first of all, when you walk in that building and you see and there's 12 different pathways for students, whether it be fashion design or international marketing or business analytics. But what you see is not as much teacher led as it is student involved. So here's 4 students in a breakout room sitting together, maybe for 3 days straight. And um, if you're a teacher who thinks I'm teaching well when I can see everyone in my class and I'm guiding their work, it's going to feel very different. So
Hmm.
you really have to. Um, One of the things we do is we host a lot in Minnetonka. I'll throw that out there. 3 or 4 times a year, people from across the country will come and look and say, "Well, we want to see this Vantage program or this Momentum program." And then they get in there and then they're excited because they can't imagine as a teacher how fun it would be when your kids are loving their work.
Yeah.
You're not keeping them on task. you're trying to help them out as fast as you can because they're so excited to move things forward.
Yeah.
But it's a paradigm shift. It is
Yeah.
so different than what teachers experienced
Yeah,
or
to
what
being
parents
that guide on
experienced.
the side, that facilitator, it is different than how they experienced learning and how they have experienced teaching.
Right. And um, everyone thinks I went to school, therefore I'm an expert on what school must look
Right.
like. And then
Right.
this looks different. And even for their parents, I hear parents say, I was a skeptic, but every student should have an experience like this. So,
Yeah. Um, let's dial it up to your national perspective. I mean, you have the vantage point of working with superintendents across the country. What are some of the encouraging shifts? Like earlier, you mentioned experiential learning, seeing more of those kinds of things. What are the new ideas that you're seeing in education right now, David, as you go across the country?
AASA, and I was very fortunate as I came into the presidency, they're talking about, where do public schools need to go over the next 10 years? We're
Mm,
really looking at this narrative about a concern about are our schools meeting our needs? And that, there's some really competing things happening in the education space. On one hand, students have the ability through technology to get information faster than their parents ever could. Like they can interact and find things, whether it be with AI or with databases and research. And so, how we have students grow in that and how adults can comprehend, well, what do kids need to learn if they can get this information? They're
yeah.
really going to be managers and communicators of information rather than creators of information. I mean, there's still
Mm,
some creation in that.
mhm.
The best schools are helping students be flexibly navigating all of the tools we have available today, understanding, you know, we are interacting in a medium that didn't exist in this fashion 10 years ago,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Um, the also, so there's this flexibility and real skills for real life. That's a piece of it. Another part of it is measure what matters. What do
Mm,
our students' future employers or educators wanting from our students, and how do we communicate that? There's this, we're having a really funny conversation in Minnesota, probably across the country, about the role of cursive instruction.
mhm.
And it's interesting because what you get at the core of, I heard someone say to me, I want my children to be able to read my mom's letters. That's very romantic. It's very practical. It plays a role, but there's a disconnect because I've not had any employer say, your children's lack of ability to read and write in cursive is why we're not employing them. So there's this, yeah, hey, teach the stuff that you've always taught, but make sure kids are ready to do things they've never done.
Yeah.
So we need to figure out what's the stuff, and then how do we measure and communicate that? We're hearing this big shift in the skills, the essential skills that students need to have. Um, Communicate, collaborate, work
Right.
with other people,
Hmm.
self-direct, attend, engage. We want people here when we expect them to be here, and we
Yes.
want them to be doing things we expect them to do, and really maybe improving, curiously improving the things that they're working on. We do all those things at school, but boy, we don't communicate them very well.
Well, and it's also about helping students process the process so they can communicate from the experiences that they have, what have they learned, right? So
Right.
it is both helping the adults be able to understand and communicate that as well as the students when they're in the process. Talking about students, one of the things that we say here at the DeBruce Foundation is that we often recognize talent is distributed equally, but opportunity is not.
Right.
And from your national lens, like across the many communities and the districts that you get to work with, I bet you see differences in the resource sources and the access. In fact, you even kind of alluded to it in the last question. From your perspective, David, what does it look like to close those opportunity gaps so that every student really has that chance to succeed and to help them build those kinds of essential skills that you're talking about, those kinds of things that really are going to be a requirement for them to be upwardly mobile and having economic opportunities?
I love this question. I think it, you know, I could be at peace with education if we could acknowledge every student walks in with skills and that those skills all represent some value. What we take a lot of pride in the fact that we've identified what we think excellence looks like. And kids come to us with all sorts of excellence, and we say, well, that's really great that you're incredibly creative and tactile and imaginative, but how are you at being not imaginative and following a really direct prompt and giving the exact kind of answer? So um, I think the opportunity gap starts with acknowledging everyone comes with a skill set.
Oh, I'm
And
so glad you said that. Yes, yes. Talk
uh,
more about that.
when we define what we say excellence is, we discount the amazing that kids bring to us.
Yes.
And really, sometimes we work really hard to beat it out of them and say, yeah, that's great that you're talkative and a leader, but could you just be quiet and submissive? And really, that student becomes disengaged and says, what I'm good at isn't valued here. And there's that balance of, yes, we all need to hear direction and do
Mhm,
work.
mhm.
Then the other part of that is a good friend of mine was the superintendent in Fargo, North Dakota. And when we were talking about the public education promise, he said it's not going to be a sales pitch in North Dakota if all we're doing is educating kids for the purpose of leaving their communities, right?
Uh,
We need to be educating students in their communities for the needs of their communities. That
yes,
means constantly saying what's the needs of our communities and
it
then
does.
aligning our education to meet that. That's that opportunity piece. Our standards-based education system is intended to prepare every student for the choice for post-secondary.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a four-year school. It's the confidence that whatever your post-secondary option is, we want you to be prepared. And so within that opportunity gap question is, have we exposed you to things that are interesting, that are career pathways, that are aligned to your skill sets, that make you feel confident to move on and be successful? And it isn't, have we prepared you to take 6 AP classes and get a 5?
Right.
Um, and when we measure success based on here's some criteria, a very foundational part of my educational career was I spent several years working in a high school at-risk setting. And as a student who wasn't a high school at-risk student, working with about 170 9th through 12th graders who
Mhm.
were in that setting, I had to readjust myself to realize that it wasn't my place to tell these students what their dreams were. It was to help them make sure they had dreams and put them on their way and not have them limit themselves. And I work with some incredible educators who help me frame that resource. But if you have someone say, I know what these kids need, without listening to the kids, you're missing the boat
Yeah.
because none of us are, or none of the happiest of us are what someone told us we needed to be.
Right. Well, I share that experience with you. That's I cut my teeth in an alternative school too. And we had the 7th through 12th graders who had been basically, oh, school didn't work out for them in any of the other settings, right? And so and like you, I had not been a student who had struggled with this. And so really um getting to understand how to meet students where they are. And I did pull a quote that I was like, oh, I think this quote is indicative of the conversation that we're having right now. You have said, quote, I'm committed to help kids find their dreams and chase them. Our job in public education isn't to tell students what it is to be great. It's to help them find their strengths and run with them. And that fits so much inside of the work that we've done here at the DeBruce Foundation. And just even recognizing, we have a colleague here who has said, building confidence in kids is no small thing. Even building confidence in adults, right, is no small thing. So when we get back to even helping kids explore and develop these skills that we're talking about, at the same time, as you mentioned, recognizing that they showed up on our doorstep with a lot of skills. Now,
Yeah.
how do you, and I always I love middle school educators because I think they're some of the best at like seeing kids and who they are and then like going with that. Like, okay, we are just gonna celebrate that and move on into that. And even as we think about as educators, we're talking now so much about college and career readiness. I mean, we
Mhm.
have for the whole time you and I have been in education, we've been talking about that. And yet we're doing it in a time that the workforce is readily changing. I mean, these
Mhm.
students aren't going to have one job or one career. They're going to have probably six different careers, maybe 18 different jobs, right? So it's moving so quickly that makes this development of skills all the more important, recognizing what they already bring to the table and then, also capitalizing on that. So, if you were to talk about what does true workforce or career readiness look like for you, David, or for the students that you get to serve, what would you say it is?
Well, my first pushback for post-secondary or careers is that um, the reason that those are unique places is because they play a role in developing people who get there. And so I'm always a little critical when someone says, well, they weren't ready when they got here. First
Mm-hmm.
of all, those of us who work in K-12, we don't get the luxury of telling anyone when they got to the doorstep, hey, you weren't ready when you got here,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We, we could waste a lot of wind complaining. You weren't what I would define as ready.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, all of those places are unique because they provide opportunities and training. So what we hope to deliver are people who show up, are curious, can
Mm-hmm.
attend and adapt and learn, and that we want to be communicating a transcript, a resume, a story that says, look at how I've grown in this place that I've been as an indicator of how I will grow at this place that you're inviting me. And I think that is college and career readiness. It's exposure. Ideally, there's some areas of interest, and students have unique skill sets. We have students who have a passion for technology, or a passion for policy, or a passion for creation, or manufacturing, or those pieces as a starting spot, but it's not a culminating spot. It's
Mm-hmm.
I've been successful in this. I'm curious. I'd like to do this, and then I'm going to come to you and learn with you. I think of the wonderful, we launch one of the, pardon my pun, one of the biggest growth areas we have in our system is around aviation because it's such a wide open career pathway.
Mm.
And our students, and we went on a first flight. We've got a alumnus who works at a aviation industry, and all of our students get a flight, and they get in a plane, and one sits next to the pilot and one sits in the back seat, and they go to do their flight, and then the trainer essentially, when they get off the ground, says take the wheel, and that person sits back like driver's ed, and our students are flying, and then one in the back seat, and they fly around, and I actually went on one of these flights with just a trainer and I flew around a little bit, and we were there as kids switched, and these two kids switched, and one got out and the other one got in. And the one student said, I am never going to be a pilot. The
Right,
other,
because it's just as important that they learn what they don't want to do as what they do want to do when they're going through these experiences.
right. However, that person understood, I love the aviation industry.
Mm-hmm.
This, there's a lot of operational sides of aviation I want to do. I don't want to fly a plane. The other person now has her pilot's license because she loves it. And
Mm-hmm.
so those are incredible lessons to learn in the K-12 system about here's something I thought I wanted to do that
Yes.
isn't right there, or here's something I thought I wanted to do and now I really want to do it. We should be able to provide both those experiences.
Yes. And maybe before I spent X amount of money for Y amount of years in
Right.
doing this. So, David, you're so committed to student success, and you also operate from a belief system that like this has got to be created by community, right? So,
Mhm.
would you talk with us a little bit more about your portrait of a graduate? I mean, like this simulation, this example is perfect. Like you couldn't do that as just the school. You get to involve the community in that. So tell us a little bit more about Portrait of a Graduate. I know some other school districts are doing it across the country, but there's still a lot of people out there who don't know or understand that and the community-driven shared vision for something like that.
You asked in an earlier question, what are school districts across the country doing that's really innovative and new? And I'm going to come back to this topic of the portrait of a graduate. So
Okay.
what does our community think our graduates need to have in their tool belt? And that's that portrait of a graduate. It's students. We've identified some of these things: students who can work together, students who complete tasks, students who engage, students who are present, students who are there are academic competencies are there. You need to be able to communicate, read, write, speak, text, type, all those things. That's all part of it. But
Mhm.
in whether it be in a farming community in Montana or an urban setting in Chicago, your portrait of a graduate should reflect, here's the place our students are going to go and what that place says our students need. So in Minnetonka, our portrait of a graduate has this balance of experiences that students should have within our system that matches what they will likely need to do next. And it has to be community nuanced because our students are in different communities across the country. There are some generals across the entire country, and of course, but it has to be community nuanced. Our students don't need to do as much in an agricultural setting, but there are people across the country that is where most of their graduates go. So it should be reflective of your community. It should be community influenced. You should be annually, whether it be our aviation program or our automotive program, multiple times a year checking with those industries to say, are our experiences still meeting what you would expect coming out of our system? That's part of that portrait of a graduate. It's community involved, it's relevant work, it's opportunities to work together, it's project based. I will tell you, as much as I'm the superintendent, and that's a singular title, everything I do is collaborative work with the team. You just can't without.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And so give us, as you look at this newest generation of students, David, what gives you the most optimism about their future?
Right. Well, our students are amazing. I'm in a week or so, I'm presenting at the National School Boards Association with a young woman who's a senior in Minnetonka. Her name is Rory Shane, and she's fantastic. And she was part of a group of students in public policy that studied how great school districts include students. And they presented a model to our school board, and our school board adopted that model, and we are in our pilot year. And actually, like anything, we've learned what's working and what's not working. So I met with her because she's traveling with us to the National School Boards Conference to present. And in that, I just gave her some questions. I said, here's 7 things I want you to present on. Take it away. I'm not going to tell you what to do because clearly you did some amazing work on your own. Um, our students, if we let them be amazing, they will blow us away.
Oh,
And
uh,
so that is to answer your question, what our students are capable of, what they're doing, how they're shining. I mean, that's the job right now.
yes, yes. And again, she will be the star of the show. You and I
Yeah.
both know that. And again, there are so many ways that we can empower students. And we just need to let go of the reins just a little bit and
Mhm.
get, because again, how else are they supposed to develop those skills that your community is talking about them needing and wanting? Okay, I have got a few like lightning round questions for us here. Okay, so
I'm
here we go.
ready.
If every student, David, could graduate high school with one mindset or ability that would serve them for a lifetime, what would you choose?
Keep learning.
Oh, that's a
Keep
great one.
learning.
Growth
Just
mindset, keep learning.
you are never done.
Never done. That's right. What encouragement would you give to educators or anyone investing in young people today?
We're never done. Don't give up on kids. Every student has the right to have a good day and a bad day.
Yeah.
Believe that you will find success.
And let's give our audience, David, one thing that they can do to help students build brighter futures.
Just continue to ask them where their energy is. What are they excited about? Relationships take time. Well, two things. Relationships take work every day and they
Yeah.
take time. And so you'll have that moment where at one day, or even maybe not now, but 10 years from now, a student will say, "Hey, Leigh Anne, I never remembered to thank you, but you said this thing this one day, and today I'm telling you I'm doing it." And when you've been around a while, those have happened a lot.
That's right.
But when you're newer in the system, and I feel bad for educators that, their first few years, they haven't felt it yet and they're walking away. And I'm like, hey, you know what? For those of us that have seen thousands of kids tell those stories, it happens. And you know it when you connect with an educator and they see it, they're like, that's why. That's the
I know.
why.
David, you are not supposed to be able to make me cry on my own podcast here. Um, but 100%, like all of us who've had the opportunity to work with youth, um, know and have those stories. And to your
Mhm.
point, boy, give yourself a break, give yourself some grace.
Mhm.
Meet students where they are. They will not let you down. They will surprise you every single time. But truly, there's some of the things that you don't even know that you do just by being in their lives. And so I'm so glad that you gave us that encouragement today and are inspiring us to do so. We are so grateful, David, that you were able to be with us today. We covered all kinds of fantastic insights. We're winding it right back around to the importance of relationships. You started about leadership and collaboration. You've talked about community and the power of that, and that's really where the bright opportunities are, some of the most promising practices, right? With all of us working together to build these bright futures and also really involving the youth. Um, Getting into knowing what their strengths are, giving them opportunities to build those skill sets. So I'm so grateful for what you shared with our audience today. For everyone who tuned in, we hope that you've enjoyed this conversation and be sure to check out our website at debruce.org or follow us on our DeBruce Foundation social media where you can have access to more career building resources. David, thank you for all that you do to build empowered careers. And I look forward to continuing to watch the chapters of your life unfold and your leadership. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Lan. It's been an honor to be here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And like David says, together we can build empowered careers. We'll see you next time.